All right, you history nerds, buckle up. Because today we're going deep into some seriously fucked up shit from the Civil War.
Oh, yeah.
Forget Gettysburg. And Antietam. We're talking about something way more brutal. The skirmish at Hanging Rock Pass, West Virginia.
Ugh, the name.
Yeah, sounds like a picnic gone wrong.
Right, like a church social or something.
But trust me, this shit was brutal.
Yeah, skirmish. Skirmish is putting it lightly, man.
So let's cut the crap.
Okay.
Why is Hanging Rock such a big deal in this whole Civil War mess?
Okay, so for starters, it's a goddamn choke point.
Okay.
Picture this. Narrow pass, smack dab in the middle of the Romney and Cumberland Pike. A vital artery for both the Union and the Confederacy.
So control that pass, you control the flow of everything.
Troops, supplies, the whole 9 yards. Control the pass, control the region.
So basically, whoever holds Hanging Rocks has the other side by the balls.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's not just about the road either. There's a river crossing there too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, making it a strategic double whammy. It's like the goddamn Suez Canal of West Virginia.
I'm starting to get why this place is so important. But what's with all the rocks? Did these guys, like, forget their guns at home or something?
No. Not exactly. The terrain itself is the weapon, right?
Hmm.
Imagine this. Towering cliffs overlooking this road creates a natural fortress.
Oh, I see.
It's like Thermopylae.
Right.
But with more trees, and instead of Spartans, you've got a bunch of, pissed off
Who live in a rock fetish?
ready to rain hellfire down on anyone stupid enough to walk through.
Sounds like my kind of party.
Oh, yeah.
So walk me through this. Who are the main players in this rock-throwing extravaganza?
All right, so on the Confederate side, you've got Colonel Angus William MacDonald.
Angus William McNaught.
Yeah, a scrappy son of a bitch who clearly didn't skip leg day. This guy gets intel that a Union force is planning on marching through the pass.
Okay, and what does our rock-loving colonel do with this juicy piece of intel?
He decides to turn Hanging Rocks into a goddamn bowling alley from hell.
Okay.
Just picture this. MacDonald, right?
Yeah.
And 26 of his most dedicated asshats from the Hampshire militia
Okay.
spend the entire night hauling boulders to the edge of the cliff.
Oh, wow.
Ready to drop them on these unsuspecting Union soldiers.
So they're basically setting up a prehistoric booby trap.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see why they call this guy Scrappy. Now, what about the Union? They just waltz into this death trap completely oblivious.
Well, let's just say they weren't exactly known for their stellar intelligence gathering. We're talking cavalry and infantry, right?
Okay.
A decent-sized force, probably feeling pretty cocky after a few, minor victories.
Right.
And to make matters worse, a thick fog rolls in.
Hmm.
Adds to the whole, spooky, impending doom vibe.
Fog, cliffs, and a shit ton of rocks.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a recipe for disaster, baked by the devil himself. So how does this clusterfuck actually go down?
It all kicks off when the Union cavalry spots some Confederate heads poking over the cliff.
Uh-huh.
Thinking they got the element of surprise, they open fire.
Oh, no.
Bad move.
I bet that pissed off Colonel MacDonald just a tad.
Oh, yeah. You could say that.
Right.
As soon as those first shots are fired, the Confederates unleash their rocky hell. Boulders the size of small cars come crashing down on the Union troops. Horses are freaking out. Soldiers are scattering like roaches. It's pure pandemonium.
So we've got terrified Union soldiers getting pummeled by rocks, horses shitting themselves, and a fog so thick you could cut it with a knife. Sounds like a scene from a goddamn horror movie. What happens next?
Well, it gets even more fucked up.
Oh, no.
Some of the Union soldiers, in their panic, get pushed or trampled into the river.
Wait, they actually drowned from a fucking rock attack.
Yeah, 5 of them at least. That's what the records show anyway. And we actually have a first-hand account from this. From Sergeant H.B. Hedge of the Ringgold Cavalry. This guy was right in the thick of it.
Oh.
Let me read you what he wrote in his journal. The lieutenant colonel in command of the column gave no orders whatever. All was confusion. We were afraid to go forward and could not get back, as our teams had come across the river and blocked the narrow passage between the rocks in the stream.
Jesus Christ, talk about a clusterfuck. So the Union is getting their asses handed to them, literally. Do the Confederates manage to hold their ground?
They do. The Union troops are completely routed, leaving the Confederates in control of Romney. But, the stubborn bastards, they don't like to stay down for long.
I bet they were pissed.
Yeah.
So what happens next? Do the Union boys come crawling back for round 2?
Oh, they come back all right, and they bring friends. About a month later, the Union returns with reinforcements and kicks the Confederates out of Romney.
So this little town becomes a goddamn ping pong ball, getting batted back and forth between the two sides.
Exactly. Romney changes hands multiple times throughout the war, which really highlights how strategically important this region of West Virginia was.
Okay, let's cut the crap. Was this whole skirmish thing really just a minor scuffle, or was it something more?
That's where it gets interesting. On paper, it might look like a small-scale engagement, a bunch of hillbillies chucking rocks at some Yankee soldiers. But if you look at the bigger picture, the skirmish at Hanging Rock Pass had a ripple effect on the entire campaign.
All right, break it down for me. How did a bunch of rock-throwing rebels manage to influence the course of the war?
Think about it. This ragtag group of Confederates, armed with nothing but rocks and their own ingenuity, managed to completely disrupt a major Union advance. They inflicted casualties, caused chaos, and delayed the Union's plans, all with minimal losses on their own side.
So it's like a David and Goliath story, but instead of a slingshot, David's got a shitload of granite.
Exactly. And that's why this skirmish deserves a closer look. It shows how a small, determined force can use the terrain to their advantage and achieve a strategically significant victory. It also shows that sometimes the simplest weapons can be the most effective.
You know, it's funny. We often think of the Civil War as these massive battles with thousands of soldiers clashing in open fields. But sometimes it's the smaller, less-known engagements that really reveal the true nature of the war. The desperation, the ingenuity, the sheer brutality of it all.
Absolutely. These skirmishes, these little acts of defiance, they tell us a lot about the human cost of war, the ingenuity of the soldiers, and the unpredictable nature of conflict. And in the case of Hanging Rock Pass, they also tell us that sometimes a well-placed boulder can change the course of history.
It's kind of mind-blowing, right, to think a bunch of rocks could actually, like, change the course of a war. I mean, come on, this is the goddamn Civil War we're talking about. Huge armies, crazy weapons, some of the most brutal battles in American history. And yet, this little skirmish with its rock-throwing mayhem actually managed to fuck shit up. Yeah, exactly. That's what makes history so damn fascinating, isn't it? All these unexpected twists and turns, you know, and those moments when the underdog just, like, rises up and kicks ass against all odds. It's like, in the case of Hanging Rock Pass, those rocks were more than just rocks, man. They represented the ingenuity, the pure balls-out determination of those Confederate soldiers. Those guys were resourceful as hell.
It really makes you wonder, like, how many other skirmishes are out there, right? Buried in the footnotes of history, but with stories just as wild and significant as this one. Hidden gems just waiting to be unearthed.
Oh, totally. I mean, think about it. For every Gettysburg, for every Antietam, there are countless smaller battles, just as brutal, just as pivotal, that shaped the whole damn war. They might not have gotten the same hype, the same fancy names, but they were just as real, man, just as important.
So, like, what's the big takeaway here for our listeners? What can we learn from diving headfirst into this rocky, chaotic mess of Civil War history?
I think it's a reminder that sometimes the simplest shit can be the most effective. Those Confederates, they didn't have the manpower or the fancy guns the Union had, but they had the terrain. They had their smarts. And, most importantly, they had the will to fight like hell.
Resourcefulness. Balls of steel. I like it.
Exactly. That kind of grit, it can take you a long way.
It's also a reminder, right, that history isn't just about memorizing dates and names. It's about the goddamn stories, man. The stories of the people who lived it, the choices they made, the shit they had to overcome, the sacrifices they made. It's about connecting with that human element.
Absolutely. And sometimes those stories, the most powerful ones, they aren't found in those big, glorious battles. They're in those smaller, forgotten skirmishes, where the reality of war, all its ugliness and complexity, is just laid bare.
So the next time you're reading about history, don't just skim the surface. Dig deeper. Get into those footnotes. Explore the stuff that's often ignored. Trust me, you might be surprised by what you find.
You might even find some inspiration, in the stories of those who fought and died in those forgotten corners of history. The underdogs. The unsung heroes.
Well, folks, that's a wrap on our deep dive into the skirmish at Hanging Rock Pass. Hope you enjoyed this wild ride through the lesser-known battlefields of the Civil War. It's been real.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and for God's sake, keep those history books open.
Hey, if you ever find yourself in West Virginia, take a detour to Hanging Rocks. Just maybe wear a helmet, just in case.
Yeah.
Catch you on the next deep dive.